The full moon hung in the black sky, casting an eerie glow over the sleepy suburban neighborhood. In a modest two-story house, a young woman named Sarah sat alone in the living room, idly flipping through the channels on the television. Her husband, David, was working late at the hospital again, leaving her alone in the quiet and empty house. Sarah sighed, setting aside the remote and pulling her knees up to her chest. She hated being alone, especially at night. The shadows seemed to loom and shrink around her, and every creak and groan of the old house made her jump. Glancing nervously toward the kitchen, she decided to make herself a late-night snack, if only to have some semblance of company. But just as she was about to get up, a strange noise from upstairs caught her attention. A quiet, almost imperceptible sound, as if something was moving in the hallway. Sarah froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Was she imagining it? No, it was a faint shuffling sound again, similar to the sound of footsteps. Slowly she rose from the couch, straining every muscle in her body, and began to make her way to the stairs. As she climbed, the floorboards creaked ominously under her feet, and she shuddered, half expecting some invisible predator to leap out of the darkness at any moment. Reaching the top of the stairs, she stopped, straining her hearing for more sounds. And then it came again, a soft, wet, slithering sound coming from the bedroom. Sarah felt a cold chill run down her spine. Gathering her wits, she walked over to the partially open door and gently pushed it open. The room was plunged into semi-darkness, illuminated only by the pale moonlight streaming in through the window. Sarah looked around the familiar space for any sign of intrusion. Everything seemed quiet and untouched. In the far corner, partially obscured by a dresser, something was moving. Sarah squinted, trying to make out what it was. At first, it seemed nothing more than a dark, shapeless lump. But then, to her horror, it began to move and wriggle, stretching and deforming in some unnatural way. In horror, Sarah watched the creature, rising upward, its shape blurring and changing until it took on vaguely humanoid outlines. But the proportions were wrong, its limbs too long and thin, its movements jerky and anxious. When it turned toward her, Sarah could see its face, or what looked like a face. A lipless, grinning face dotted with jagged, needle-like teeth and sunken eyes that glowed with ravenous hunger. Sarah's mind reeled as a horrible realization hit her. This wasn't a human intruder. It was something inhuman, and it was staring directly at her, its grotesque features contorted in a vicious grin. Without a second's hesitation, Sarah spun on her heels and dashed for the stairs, her heart pounding in her ears. She had to get out of here, had to get as far away from this creature as possible. As she climbed the stairs, she looked over her shoulder and her breath caught. The creature was stalking her, its movements eerily fluid and graceful despite its unnatural form. It was gaining on her, a low, guttural growl coming from its gaping mouth. In a panic, Sarah rushed down the stairs and, barely able to stay on her feet, rushed to the front door. She needed to get outside, she needed to find help. Swinging the door open, she ran out into the cool night air, slapping her bare feet on the sidewalk. Behind her, she heard the unearthly howl of the creature, which sent a shiver of terror running down her spine. She ran as fast as her legs could carry her, desperate to put as much distance between herself and the creature as possible. After what seemed like an eternity, she spotted the familiar outline of a neighbor's car parked in the driveway a few houses away. Gathering her last strength, she rushed toward it, praying that Mrs. Wilkins was home. "Help!" she shouted, pounding on the car window. "Please, you have to help me!" The driver's side door swung open, and an elderly woman with eyes widened with alarm looked out. "Good God, my child, what's wrong?" she exclaimed. "There's something in my house," Sarah gasped, her voice trembling. "Something inhuman. It's haunting me." The expression on Mrs. Wilkins's face changed to one of pure terror. "Good God, get in the car now!" Without thinking, Sarah swung open the passenger door and slid inside, slamming it shut behind her. Mrs. Wilkins pressed the gas pedal, and the car sped forward, tires squealing. As the car sped away, a desperate mixture of fear and determination raged in Sarah's mind. She had to find a way to stop this thing and save David before it was too late. Upon reaching the police station, Sarah and Mrs. Wilkins frantically explained the situation to the officers on duty. The police officers were skeptical at first, clearly unwilling to believe the wild tale of a creature in uniform roaming the neighborhood. But the terror in Sarah's eyes and the sincerity of Mrs. Wilkins's plea eventually won them over. Within minutes, a small squad of policemen were rushing toward Sarah's house with sirens blaring. As they approached, Sarah's heart pounded with hope and fear, and she prayed that they would not be too late. The policemen entered the house cautiously, keeping their guns at the ready, Sarah and Mrs. Wilkins following nervously behind. They searched every room, but the house was eerily quiet. No sign of the monstrous intruder or Sarah's husband. Just as they were about to give up, a scream from one of the officers came from an upstairs bedroom. Sarah rushed up the stairs, nearly colliding with the bulky policeman as he appeared with a grim expression on his face. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. We found your husband. He's dead." Sarah's world crumbled around her. David, her loving, devoted husband, was dead. Consumed with grief and rage, she squeezed past the officer, desperate to see the body with her own eyes. But as she entered the bedroom, what she saw made her freeze. In the far corner, partially obscured by a dresser, stood a dark, shapeless creature encircling David's lifeless body with its huge, outstretched limbs. It turned toward her, and its features contorted into a monstrous, triumphant grin. Sarah let out a strangled scream, terror frozen in her veins. The policemen opened fire, their bullets digging into the creature's flesh, but it seemed to defy their attacks, its form rippling and changing as it approached them. Desperate to survive, Sarah ran out of the room, the sounds of battle echoing behind her. She rushed down the stairs and to the front door. As she ran, Sarah realized that she could never go home, that her life would never be the same. The creature had taken everything from her, her husband, her sense of security, her very identity. She was a victim, a survivor of unimaginable horror. And somewhere out there, in the darkness, the werewolf still lurked, its predatory eyes always fixed on her. Sarah knew she would never be completely safe.